Today, we're here with Yanick of Edge Glass. He's been a client of ours for the last 8 months. We're going to discuss things like momentum, how good momentum and bad momentum play a role in your success. We're going to talk about the difference between operational numbers and tax numbers, and why operational numbers bring confidence and tax numbers just bring stress. We're going to talk about why you want to play the game of chess in business and not tic-tac-toe. It gives you a competitive edge in that category. We're going to discuss why running lean is probably one of your best market advantages when it comes to outdoing your competitors. And we're also going to talk about how one small mistake can actually destroy your business and how to be prepared to not make those mistakes.
And wait, we might even talk about how to effectively clean your windows and glass.
I'm Dennis.
And I'm Greg,
And this is the More Profit, Less Stress podcast.
where we provide the tools for more profit and less stress in your business now so you can turn into a valuable asset later. Okay, welcome to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. I'm Greg Forzani. I'm here with Dennis Taekema. And our guest today is Yanick Paradis from Edge Glass. And Yanick, before we get into it, maybe introduce what's your company do, where you're located, and what geographic area do you cover? What area do you service?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, we're a glazing company. We do commercial glazing. We do residential glazing. We're located in Edge, Alberta, and we're servicing southern Alberta to northern Alberta. Most likely, Calgary area will be our main area where we're servicing, and to Red Deer will be another one that we do a fair amount of work there.
And sorry, for those who don't know, what is glazing?
Glazing will be all commercial windows. Like on the commercial will be the envelope of a building, entrances, and then on the residential side will be more glass shower, glass railing, mirrors, wine cellar that we do quite a bit. Yeah.
What is glazing? That's where it goes.
Well, glazing would be like the trade name for what we do, basically.
Like plumber.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
Makes the glass foggy. What does it do?
It doesn't do much. It's just the name for the trade.
It's
more
just the name for cutting glass, picking the sizes, installing
I think it's more the name
just
for the
whole
industry.
trade. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. So, how'd you get started in that?
It's a long story, but got into with a friends into a commercial contracting company, and right away I got very good at it naturally, and I start liking it a lot, and I kind of see the potential. I see the growth of the industry. So when I saw those opportunity, I kind of wanted to stick in the trade and kind of learn everything about it until I went from an installer to a lead hand to a foreman to all the superintendent to project manager. And until I learn enough to be able to know every aspect of the industry to be able to start on my own. And I always wanted, pardon me?
You worked your way up. You started at the bottom
Correct.
of this industry and decided hey, I just fell in love with it and decided to take that technician expertise and go build your own thing.
That's right. I always had the entrepreneur mindset since I'm very, very young. I just didn't know exactly what kind of business I wanted to end up in. But over the years now, I start to learn that industry and really, really I like it and enjoy every aspect of it. And I felt that was a great industry because it's growing. If you look at building, there's more and more and more glass. The demand is more every year. So what it is okay, that could be a good opportunity for me to actually start a business in. And an opportunity came up and I just went both it in and went all in. Yeah.
Boy, I can sure say I live in Arizona, so obviously we couldn't get you to do our house. But for people listening to this, I can say from a homeowner's point of view, we did a big renovation in our house and absolutely without question, when we look at our home or when guests come over, it's the glass that gets people's attention, right? The shower glass, we did a big walk-in shower, and then the back wall, we knocked out the wall and did all glass sliding doors in the back. And it's just I think from somebody that owns a home that thinks what's some things I could do in my house to kind of go, wow, I love this. Glass is pretty cool, to your point.
Well, no offense, Greg, but when you walk through your front door and all you see is a back wall of just windows, it's kind of hard not to notice. So I can see why everybody talks about it because you can't really avoid it.
You can miss it.
No. But it's cool as a homeowner. It's neat having a lot of glass on the wall and stuff. I appreciate your industry and what you do. And I think for people thinking about renovations, it's something they should be looking at and researching. As the homeowner, I love it. It's great.
So Do you guys do like the whole manufacturing of the window then, or is that just the installation of the windows? Like, what's your
No,
role?
we manufacture like everything is commercial windows. So we manufacture all this. And on the residential side of it, we'll do the shower glass and then glass railing. But this is getting to a manufacturer plan for all the shape and the cutting and everything else. But we gotta measure it, we gotta design it, and then send that for productions. And then after that, we just grab the pick up the glass and then go install it and then finish up everything else. Only the glass manufacturer will do the manufacturing of the glass.
Right.
So,
Does that include like mirrors and stuff, like big
yeah,
custom mirrors and things?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anything in the
that's cool.
glass in the house, that's what we do. And so we can go from a glass shelf to a glass mirror to a shower to a glass railing to a wine cellar. Wine cellar is getting very, very popular.
Right.
Skylight, glass roof, glass floor. You don't realize how much glass is in a home until
Right.
you're in it. And it's like, okay, yeah, we need more this, we need shelf there, we have a bar, we have so
And
all of
even
the
these
stuff.
cool, even these, I'm sure you enjoy like there's probably a bit of a artistic part of this for you, right? Like it helps you, you're not just like banging nails with hammers, like you get to be artistic. So like even some of the big mirrors and stuff now, people are putting lights behind them and doing some cool stuff that can probably get pretty creative.
Yeah, that's one thing that I prefer myself personally. On the residential side, allow you a bit more to be creative and
Yeah.
design things. But the glass industry is changing drastically from electric glass to go to clear to frosted with just a switch,
Wow.
like privacy glass. Like I said, glass floor. That back then we're not doing much of the glass floor. Now we have glass floor, glass roof, and even the shower. The shower industry is changing. Shower is getting bigger, more angled, and we're in Alberta, so sometimes you go to a Banff and they want the top of the shower of the glass like matching mountains and things like this. So it's endless, literally endless what you can do with. And for me, like you always have to adapt and come up with new things and be able to create new things. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm just thinking to myself, talk about a high risk environment to have employees in. Like glass isn't
Yes.
exactly malleable like plywood. They drop one of those panes and that's got to be a problem.
On residential is obviously safety is always there, but on the commercial side of it, when you get to heights, the safety significantly increase and the risk. If we install glass on the 5th story building, there's no giving. If you drop something, it will make some damage. And we don't have a whole lot of tolerance. Like our tolerance is about 3 millimeters. That's kind of the tolerance that we have. So yeah, it fit or it doesn't.
You have to be perfect the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I come from a construction framing background and an agriculture background. And agriculture is, if we can make it work, it works. Framing is, well, you can have about a 16th to an 8th inch tolerance and we can make it work. But you're talking like smaller than finishing carpentry error.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Because on a finishing carpentry, the guy that trained me on that, his tolerance was a 32nd of an inch.
Yeah, so
you're dealing in the exact same thing, except I can use putter and filler to make up a little bit of a difference if I'm off, but you guys would have to like recut a whole new pane.
Yes, absolutely. Some will put silicone to kind of hide it, but we try to avoid that. We want a perfect fit the first time.
Yeah, I can totally see why, like getting into that industry, you'd almost want to start from the ground up and understand how all of that works. Because if you walk in blind and just assume it's like other construction, you're going to be screwed.
Your chance
So I'm thinking from a customer, I'm thinking from a customer's point of view, commercial or residential, that better be really high on your questions list for the company you're thinking about hiring. What's their experience?
This is the number one question.
Yeah, because safety is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
It can be in a messy environment. Has to be everything goes there, and on commercial everything's got to be tie off. All tools got to be tie off. Obviously yourself have to be tie off. There's not much place for error.
Room for error.
Yeah, so you have to pay attention, because the minute you don't pay attention, that's where accident happened. And I've seen this before. It's not a good day. People get injured. For me, I like that because that's the environment I like to work in. I like precisions. I like being organized and everything have a certain place. But that's the kind of person you're looking to hire that they organize and they like precisions. And because if you hire somebody that you go in the drywall or trade, they have tolerance, quarter inch, half inch. So those people, and that's fine for that trade because they can allow that. But if that same person comes into glazing, you might have problems there, right? So
Right.
you're looking for somebody that like precisions and organize for sure.
It's a good tip. It just makes me think any business owner, when you're hiring, when you're selecting the kind of person, it's more than just like, do they have experience or do they have a passion for it? Like, all that's great. But there's a whole nother question, which is, they wired correctly for that type of job? Because like in your case, if they're not wired that way, it doesn't matter how much experience they have, they're never going to be great at it.
Never.
So that's a great tip for any business owner. It's whatever that might be. Like if you're hiring somebody to work in a bookkeeping or accounting firm, they actually have to have a passion for numbers. Or I know like my wife used to own a pet store. Those people have to have a passion for pets, but then her pet store was about pet nutrition and healthy pet stuff. So they got to have a passion for health, right?
Mhm.
Like you're either like that or you're not. So I think what you're saying is, to be that level, it's more than just the skill set, it's the kind of person you're hiring. So
Yeah.
that's good advice.
100%. 100%. Because for us, I would rather have somebody with the work ethic that they're precise, organized, that never have any experience in the trade, than have somebody with experience that are messy and unorganized, don't pay attention, because it will be very hard for me to change that.
Right.
But if I have the base of this, of being organized and precise and care, I can teach them the trade after. But
Yeah.
the other way around is very, very hard. So yeah.
Yeah, we talk about that often, about how hiring with experience doesn't really mean anything because you don't know what the experience translates into. Like
Yeah.
I had a
Exactly.
client mechanic shop. He hired a service manager with 30 years of experience being a service manager, and he didn't delegate. He just abdicated that responsibility to the service manager. And at 6 months later, we keep looking at the numbers and trying to figure out why everything isn't working. And he's looking on the door of bankruptcy because we had no idea that behind the scenes, the service manager was uncomfortable with his pricing, didn't understand the inventory, didn't any of that stuff, and just it all needs sort of discounting, doing things, and just all kind of withered away one little bit at a time. And we just didn't see it happening. So like to your point, I could come in with 10 years of glazing experience, but what kind of experience? All of that
It's
matters.
Absolutely. And the industry it's pretty vague because some people will do windshield, such we don't do windshield. And some people have like 10 years of experience in glazing industry, but they only done windshield. Some people will only have done commercial glazing. Some people will only do residential, such as shower and mirrors. So if you put them in an environment on height, they have to work at 300 feet in the air, it's minus 30, high winds. It's a hard job, hard work there. And you still have to deal with precisions in those kind of environment. That person that have 10, 15, 20 years in the residential might not work well there.
Right.
So then you've definitely nailed down the service technician smart side of the business. What was getting in your way on the business side of the business? Like what made you ask for help?
I always wanted to improve myself and the business. So I was not in a situation where I really, really need help. It's just I wanted to improve and get better until I have my first meeting with Greg and realizes like, yeah, okay, I might need more help than I was expecting. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I joined the program. Is I always want to improve myself, improve the business, and never stop that. So because it's always a work in progress.
For sure.
So.
Just one last question on that. You made a comment saying when you engaged, you realized you might need a lot more help than you were anticipating. What were
Right.
some of those first initial like light bulb moments of holy crap, I didn't realize this, or I missed this, or maybe I should know more about this? Because when a lot of people I talk to assume that helping in the business is how do I just bring in more revenue to scale this thing, or how do I hire one or two smart people? It doesn't sound like that's what you realized.
No, what I realized is my numbers. I didn't know my numbers like I should know my numbers. I didn't keep track of them. And you always think that, yeah, I'm making profit. until you actually go through the profit plan and realize it's like, damn, I'm not making as much profit that I thought. And sometimes I'm not making as much profit that I should be making. And like to know exactly where you at. Are you making the profit you should be? Or are you making way lower profit than you should be? To actually know that precisely. That was thing that I was lacking on, I think at the beginning for sure. Multiple other things too, but the main one was to know my numbers, make sure that I know I'm profitable and actually know where the most profitable compared to sometimes you do things, let's say on commercials. You might not be as profitable on commercials, but you're very profitable on a residential or vice versa. So you know where to focus now, other than spend your time where you're not really making money. Maybe focus more on where you're making money. But if you don't know your number, you don't know that. So you just keep working and you're working with not a precise directions because you try to do a bit of everything, but sometimes you get overwhelmed, but you're focusing on things that you're not profitable. So other than try to grow and grow, you're like, okay, let's stop here, realize where we're actually making profit, and then start focusing on that direction more than just try to focus and keep up with everything else where you're not necessarily making profit, and you might never will, right? So
In
that was
other
the biggest
words,
help.
yeah, I love it because I know we talked through that, and I think like Dennis and I do this with a lot of clients. It's what you just said, and you said it perfectly. The only thing I would add for clarity to people is realizing you only have so much time in the day or month or whatever week. Where are you investing that time to get the biggest return? And that's what you're saying. I only have you're a growing company, you're a successful company, you're busy. You've only got so much time to invest. Where do I invest it? Is just for clarity. That's awesome. Okay, so you said something a few minutes ago, and I want to go back to it because I think obviously the main reason Dennis and I do this podcast is, 95% of businesses out there are failing. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's an epidemic. And we're trying to help people get some good advice, some good actionable things, and change that number, right? Make an impact. I think you said something a minute ago that's super important. I think a lot of business owners that are in the situation you were in before we met, which is I'm making a decent living, paying my bills. I'm able to take some vacations. I'm able to, you're not worried about paying next month's mortgage. You can buy groceries, all that stuff. It's great. So people will think things are really good. I just need to learn just a little bit of stuff, right? I guess for lack of better words, maybe in a lot of people's cases, human ego gets in the way that because I'm a great whatever they do, a carpenter, a glazer, a restaurant chef, then I'm also great at business and I'm doing pretty good. My customers love me. I just maybe need a little tweak here and there. And they just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's out there and available and what could be different and better. Right now, if you were looking at those people in the eye and you had the chance to talk to them, what would you say to them, understanding from their perspective what they're thinking right now?
Well, I think you just said it, is you don't know what you don't know. So just go learn it because you have tons of things that you don't know, but you think you know a lot. And yeah, you do know a lot, but there are a lot of things that you don't know. So if you focus on the things that you don't know and try to learn them, you'll only get good out of it.
So what would you say to those people? 2 questions and kind of answer them back to back. 1, what would you say is the risk to those people? What's the risk they're facing they don't know? And then what would you say is the opportunity ahead of them that they don't know?
Well, if you don't know let's say your number, you don't know if you're profitable, right there, the risk is very high because you're at one decision away that it goes another direction. So if you're not profitable and you're making one bad decisions, that is it. There in business, there's not much
it's like glazing, right? You're on the 50th floor glazing, one bad decision.
Exactly. And that is it. So the risk is very high. So if you want to minimize the risk, well, you should know how profitable you are. That would be step 1. And after that, you'd be able to make better decisions. So that would be what I will say is you need to know if you're actually profitable. If you want to minimize the risk, because business is super high risk, you want to minimize the risk of that. Not knowing if you're profitable, not knowing your number, not knowing where where you stand, it's high risk. So if you want to minimize that, you need to know those things. It's the bottom of it.
Yeah, I love it. What's your opinion like today versus, say, before we started working together, of what you can achieve with this company, like where you can get it to? Has that changed? Has you got clarity
Absolutely.
difference, or well, expand on that?
Yes, like I said earlier, that it's endless the way you can do and achieve with the business. But if you focusing on the wrong place where you're not necessarily profitable, it will be a long journey and then a lot of hiccups. But if you know where you're profitable and you know where to focus and you have the directions, then now it's endless because you're shaving the time drastically and you having a straight directions of where we're going, where we know it working, where we are performing and good at, then other than try to focus too many places where you're not necessarily successful at those places. So you're wasting a lot of times that you don't have. So if you want to be more successful, then you need to know where you need to focus with a straight direction and a clear directions.
Love it.
You made a couple of comments there that I found very interesting. Number one, wasting time you don't know you have. So I'm assuming then you bring that up because you found areas you were wasting time where you didn't have. Like, what were
Yes.
you focusing your attention on that you shouldn't have been?
I'm try to do everything that's coming at you. Sometimes it's hard to say no for customer. You don't want necessarily to say no right away and say no, we don't do that. But you want to know where you need to focus on, and then stick to this. And slowly, those things will go away. Like where you were wasting your time, you won't focus as much time, so you won't necessarily attract those kind of customer that keep throwing you those kind of work at you that you're not profitable there. So if you only focus on that, naturally, it's like the law of attractions. You will attract where you focus on. So the work that you focus on will come more and more and more, and then the one that you don't focus on will come less and less and less. But if you try to focus on everything, they'll keep coming.
So that's where you figured out your difference was you were focusing on non-profitable work, which was distracting you away from the profitable work.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that to me sounds like the typical symptom of revenue attention, not margin attention. You were focused on revenue and what's coming through the door, not on the margins from what you were making from it.
100%. You were focusing on whatever revenue's coming in. You're like, oh yeah, great. But are they profitable? No. Okay. But why you keep focusing on, why you keep spending time on? Because when you get busier and busier, you need to prioritize your time better. You have no choice. Other than that, you get overwhelmed and then you get all over and try to do everything and it doesn't work. So you really need to focus on the directions, and to know the directions, then you need to know your numbers. You need to know where you're profitable. So that will speed up and a lot of times in your journey of business.
Well, if I can help make that relatable for people, boy, I love what you just said. Awesome perspective. We're the average of, say, the 5 people we spend the most time with, right? Like in our personal life. And advice is to, if one of them's a toxic relationship, you eliminate that, replace it with a good one, you change and it becomes more beneficial to you as a person, like health, whatever it is, right? You just basically said the same thing about business, right? Who are you spending time with, customers, and which ones are toxic, so not profitable, which is bad, right? Like if it's not profitable, business goes bankrupt, you can't help anybody. You can't employ anybody. You can't do any of that stuff. So yeah, it's awesome advice, and it to help people relate to it, it's applied to that concept of personal life.
I'm kind of laughing because on the surface level of what we're talking about, it all sounds so incredibly easy. Oh yeah, just focus on the high margin stuff and say no to the low margin stuff, and business is going to be fine and you're going to rake it all in. But I'm listening to what you're saying and you're very logical about it, and it's true. But I know beneath the surface there's a whole lot of like, what do you mean this wasn't making me any money? What do you mean I got to say no to this customer? Like there's that whole emotional thing that I know everybody goes through when they start ripping this stuff apart, that I can't imagine this process was simple for you.
It's not simple, but it become more simple when you know your numbers. Because when you try to prioritize your times and just focus on that, it simplifies things. Because you know that you can make profit there. So I can't give you too much attention. So, and you just keep focusing on the directions, but you got to know the directions. So it go back to know your numbers. You know your numbers. Now it simplify your decisions on a day-to-day basis. When people calling you, you get emails and you need this, you need that. I can focus on that. And if you stop focusing on that, naturally they'll stop coming. Also, if you keep focusing in the right direction, they'll keep coming. So that's how you'll simplify everything. It's not like overnight, but eventually you'll get there.
Totally. Okay, Yanick, I love you just said that. So let's rip that apart a little bit and peel some layers back. So, I mean, I know in our journey working together, we went from the profit plan. So for listeners, that's like, for lack of better words, a budget on steroids. It helps us measure all sorts of key performance indicators and where you want to get your company to, and then the path to get there with regards to number benchmarks, right? And then from there we go to, and this goes into what you were talking about, non-profitable clients or customers or even services, or know your numbers. And then from there we went into the pricing tool. And so I'm going to share an example of another client for a second, because I think this relates to you. It's a similar story. We had another client where it was a husband-wife team ran the business, and they're in a contracting business. And they got introduced to the pricing tool like you did. And then the wife started joking around about how the husband's cheating on her. And, I'm like, kind of like in a serious look, like, what do you mean? And she says, well, because he takes the pricing tool to bed every night with him, right? So I think just maybe expand a bit on like how, when we got into the pricing tool and how that changed how you did everything with your numbers and knowing your numbers about services and jobs and different customers and things like that. Like, expand on that, and then maybe kind of tell the listener, like, I guess just the impact of that.
Yeah, well, the impact of that, it's great because you know that you're going to make money, that you're
On
going to
that
be
job.
profitable on that job.
Yeah.
All you have to make sure is that you allow for every single thing. And when I say every single thing, is to the screw close. So if you
Right.
allow for everything and everything goes well, you'll be profitable. And also the things that it was a big help for me is when you're pricing, sometimes they want to deduct things or add things. So
Right.
it's easy to deduct an item or scope of work and still be profitable. Because if you didn't quote properly, and if you're not doing the things the right way, it will catch you. And it will catch you that way that you price the job, and then they take a scope of work away, and now you make
Right.
no money. And sometimes they add a scope of work, like great, but it's not always great, right? Also, sometimes they'll ask a discount, or a lot of times, like, they have a tight budget like everybody else. So you can make the right decisions, not just basis like, I gotta keep my guys busy, I gotta generate something, but are you going to still make money? So with the pricing tools, you can go back and say, well, if I bring it down to that much, I look and I'm still profitable and I'm still comfortable with those kind of profit. Good. I could maybe bring my price down, still be profitable to keep my guys busy and then keep things going. But if you make that decision to just keep you guys busy, and then you don't know your number, and then you bring the price down, and now you get in the red that I'm not making money, and you didn't start the project yet.
Right.
So now you're putting your business vulnerable and at risk. So the
Especially
pricing,
if you do like 6 jobs in a row like that.
and then you do them all like that without realizing. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest problem of businesses. They just don't know. They agree to, and also a clients that keep asking you price down, and they know you will bring it down, or they'll ask you every time, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can, because I look at the numbers and it's like, yeah, or maybe I can find an alternative of what you propose. I could use this, propose that to you, bring the price down, and it works for both of us, because I still making money, I keep my guys busy, you're saving some cost, so it's a win-win for both. But if you just agree to bring your price down, not knowing that now it went from I'm generating profit to I lost all the profit, and you still agree with this, you won't last long. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of time. So the profit, the pricing tools for me, it was the best thing to be able to know exactly.
I love this, Dennis. I think you probably want to ask stuff too, but I love. So Dennis and I have worked with and work with a lot of trades companies. And I
They're my
think this
favorite.
subject you're talking about is so big for trades companies, meaning I think a lot of trades companies just sort of go with the flow with respect to pricing, meaning I heard I buy that stuff and I mark it up 15%, or I take my labor and mark it up 25%. Like they just kind of it's the rumor in the industry, this is how I should price, and then they all go with it because that's the way it's supposed to be. And I think to what you're saying, the point is they don't know the numbers, they don't actually properly calculate it, and then they just job after job after job after job, they're losing money. And then they can't even pay themselves a fair wage for the job they're doing. And from what Dennis and I see, I think that's the vast majority of trades companies. So you're in the trades business, you see other companies, you hear those kinds of conversations. Like what percentage of trades businesses do you think price blindly like that? Like blind leading the blind?
I would say 50-60%, I would say.
Scary.
Yeah.
I think you're low.
Yeah, you might be low.
Well, I went conservative.
You might be being nice.
Well, the reason my perspective is what it is because number one, if you're phoning around to find out what your competitors are doing, to find out what their pricing is, it's completely irrelevant to you anyway. Like, because
Right.
your overhead is different than their overhead. Your ratios are going to be different than their ratios. You can phone around all you want to, and you might find a ballpark, but it doesn't mean anything. Number two, if you don't know your numbers and someone fights back on you on the price because you're not confident in your delivery, it comes across subconsciously. And they're going to hammer you and you want the revenue. So you're going to come down because you don't really know where you're supposed to be anyway.
Right.
And then if you look at the failure rate across the board, I think Greg and I used to debate it was around 80%. I think the new AI research we're doing is it's closer to like 90% of the businesses
95
that just fail. Well, you got to ask yourself, well, why? If I look at statistics and the average business might make a 5% net profit at the end of a year, well, how many errors can I afford to make in my pricing before that 5% is gone?
Not many.
How many mistakes can I afford to make? Like in your industry, I'm sure that glass isn't inexpensive. And thus, if someone breaks a nice 18 by 20 foot panel of whatever, it's going to be a problem. And if you're not setting yourself up to be able to cover those losses, how do you survive?
You can't. It just
Right.
can't.
And I know a lot of
So-
my clients, when we rip them through the pricing tool for the very first time, we have them break out services, we have them break out everything. And sometimes what they see for what they're actually earning is a massive kick in the teeth. They're not ready to see that number, and it hurts because they don't realize, like what you started to realize, where things are costing you money. And then when you make the changes, I have to imagine that when you made the changes to your pricing, your confidence in your delivery of your service actually went up, not down.
For sure. And you're, like you said, you're confident of being able to walk away from a project and knowing that there's no way to be able to be profitable. And you also want, if you're constantly too low and don't know that you're not profitable, the real clients, the one that care, that they want you to make money, they want to make money and everything, they will respect you way more because they compare your price all the time. So if you're always the lower, you lose respect from them. They know you make no money and they know it won't last long and they know it's just a matter of time. But if they know that you're always where you need to be compared to the other ones, then you gain respect because they get a good service, they get a fair price, and a great quality. So it's a win-win for both of us. So if you're just wing it and try to quote and hoping to make profit, you most likely will never make profit. It's just the reality of it. And to me, when I look at the pricing tools and know your cost of operations, you can take that as an opportunity, meaning if the other company have a higher cost of operations than you do, and you know your number, and you can be profitable, but get just underneath of them every single time. It's a great opportunity for you because you're making money, you're making profit, and you still under the other company that have a way over cost of operations is way higher than yours. So that's a great opportunity, and you want to focus on not increasing your cost of operations to lose that opportunity. It's so I think that it's a great tools to be able to know where you stand and where you're at.
Yeah. You hit that nail square right on the head. That's dead bang
Listening to
on
you
right.
talk about it, I just wrote down a note that said, you're playing out the chess version of the game where most people are playing tic-tac-toe. Like
Right.
you're looking at the different elevations, what I have to manipulate, what I have to do, what my
Yeah.
overhead needs to be so I can come in at this price and it gets me market share here where everybody else is going. But if I put the X on the top corner, he might go, like, you see what I'm getting at? Like there's a completely different approach to strategy, which I have to wonder if in a very short period of time hasn't changed your entire outlook on your business. Kind of going to what Greg said earlier, is your vision for where you can go must have changed a lot.
Yes, the directions definitely a more clear directions and a more focused directions than before. This is for sure. Because when you know where you can perform at the best, it make it easier to know where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to focus. So
I know there's a subject you and I talked about. It came up like a couple of weeks ago about, we'll say, like earning. In my words, I would say earn the life you want to live, but you could kind of apply it to anything, any part of your life. Earn that, whatever that thing is. You got to earn if you want to buy your first car or your house or whatever it is, you got to earn the right. And it kind of came up as a trigger point about something about like work-life balance. A lot of people kind of think they read a book about you need to have work-life balance, and when you're done the last page, wake up tomorrow morning and there's a switch on the wall and you flip it, and all of a sudden you got work-life balance. You just work less, and it just happens all by itself with this magical wand. And I know we started talking about it. It's a subject all three of us are super passionate about, but I loved your passion about that. So just give us, I don't know, we'll just start the conversation. Give us, what's your opinion on that?
Well, if you think to start a business with a work-life balance from the start, well, you might be disappointed. I think that if you start a business today or even 10 years ago, the reality is you got to be prepared and understanding what you're getting yourself into. That's step one. And make sure that the work-life balance, it will come down the road, but it won't be anytime soon. So you have to do the workforce first to be able to get the balance later on. The balance is the result of starting the business. The problem is people want the result now. They expecting the result now. And I think the social media, it's a big factor to this. When you see like, make great money, easy money, there's no easy money. In business, there's no easy money. If you think it's easy, it won't last long, So
Right. That's a good point.
I think people are unrealistic and don't necessarily understand exactly what it takes to start a business and keep a business. It's not just like I started and then I stop working, because the minute you stop working and slowing down, the business is going down with you.
And then it's going to be hard to get that momentum back, right?
Absolutely. You do never want to lose the momentum. To me, the momentum is everything. Everything, everything, everything. You never want to lose the momentum, because the minute you lose the momentum, it's tough to get it back. So I learned my lesson on that. I lost the momentum, or not necessarily fully lost the momentum, but the momentum slowed down. And I learned quick that I can't afford that anymore. I got to make sure that I keep the momentum, and that's the directions we're going, and we push. I find like as a wheel, and every time you work, you're pushing the wheel. You're pushing it, and it's a big, big, big wheel. So it doesn't spin very, very small. But the bigger the wheel is, and the more you're pushing it, the more it takes to stop it, right? So you want to make sure that you keep pushing that wheel every day. And the one that pushed the most is the one that wins. Is the one that will be the most successful.
Right. What you're saying there is if you stop pushing the wheel and it stops, it's a lot of work to get that thing going again.
Exactly. Yeah. Even slowing it down, because it's a big, big wheel, if you push it and you get momentum and it spin, it's great. But if it's slow down, that push, it's a harder push to get it back to where it was. If it stopped, you're in trouble. You don't want to make sure you never stop that wheel. So keep pushing. That's the mentality you need to have when you start a business and to keep a business.
And like what I've been seeing is, I don't want to pick on any particular demographic, but kind of we'll say people for sure under the age of 30, but even maybe people under the age of 40 or 35, they sort of tend to, and maybe because, like you said, with social media, they see videos and stuff of like, young kids driving a Lamborghini somehow, and they come
The
out of
rented cars on the
school,
fake
maybe,
videos.
yeah, they go to maybe school or
It's
some
rented.
sort of some sort of trade school or whatever, and they get a certificate or a degree, and they feel like, well, now I put the hard work in. Now I just got to start a business. Like I just got to get a phone number, get a business name, and now I got work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
I've earned the right because I went and did the education. And you're in trades. You must maybe potentially you see that a bit, right? Where the younger people are coming in and just think it's like they've already put in the work. It should happen. Now they deserve it. They haven't earned it, but they deserve it.
Yes and no. Trade it's a tough business, right? So, and it's a tough job. So you'll have to do your times to be able. Doesn't matter if you're an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter. You will have to do your time first. Um, I think that even those people that fail, they put the work and everything. They're a hard
Right.
worker. They know their trades. They're pushing. I think they just go back. They don't know the numbers and they make wrong decisions. It's not that they didn't mean well. It's not that they didn't not a hard worker or know what they're doing. It's just, but in the same time, they don't know what they're doing on the number side of it. So
Right.
they know what they're doing on, let's say, as a plumber.
The
Great.
work
You're the
side.
best
Yeah.
plumber. You're a hard worker. You're disciplined. You got all that. But you're also missing that you don't know the number and you're vulnerable every single day of your business. So you're one decision away, and also one factor that comes too is the stereotypes is just, I gotta lease a big buildings. I gotta all have those vans and I gotta like
Right.
the model that you have in mind of, let's say, a plumbing company or any trade company, but they go and they don't generate enough money. They go sign a lease and now they do the number after and they're like,
Shit.
I don't make, yeah, now I have a problems. But if
Yeah.
they knew their number prior to make that decisions, they'll be on the safer side of it. But they put the business at risk because they make that decision. When we say you're one decision away or one mistake away, that is one. You go sign a lease. The building is maybe, oh, I need a space, but maybe the building is too big for what you actually need. And if you actually did the number, you said, yeah, I understand you want a 6,000 square foot building, but can you make it buy for 3 years with a 2,000 square foot building and then work for the 6,000 later on? But you went for the 6,000 first. That was a bad mistake. Now you pay for it. So if you knew your number, you say, well, yeah, I could probably make it buy with a 2,000 square foot. It's not the ideal, but we can make it buy with this. Great. Knowing that I'm not going to sign a 10-year lease for the 2,000 square foot building. I'm going to sign a 3-year lease for the 2,000 square foot building and then move on to the 6,000 later on with an actual game plan and the directions. But if you just wing it and make decision like this, your chance of success is reduced drastically.
It's super, like that's you're so spot on. Like, hey, Dennis, how many times do we see, sorry, I'm kind of asking Dennis a question here, but when we get a new client, there's a lot of, so Yanick, to your point, you're one bad decision away. When we get a new client, there's a lot of things they've done that we can fix pretty quickly, right? We can change the way they're making that decision. But there are some decisions that they make that aren't reversible. And Yanick, to your point, it's a lease, right? Like, Dennis, how many times we see a client starts and you start ripping through stuff and you find out they got this lease payment and they're signed in for 10 years. And the bottom line is like, there's honestly not a way out of it. The only way out of it is to sublease because they're screwed.
Yeah. And when you see a sublease, it's hard to get a good deal of it because they understand your situations. And a sublease is things didn't go as per plan, let's say. Right?
Yeah.
So, you're going to pay for it. And sometimes the cost is too big to be able to recover it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, or you get into those situations where it's not just the lease. It's, I made a bunch of bad decisions by 5%, 4%, didn't really realize how small that was. And now I'm running off to a bank to get borrowing on a loan to pay down those mistakes, but I haven't actually corrected the mistakes. So now I've borrowed money. And I'm making the same mistake continually. And now that bank money runs out. So I'm trying to get more money from the bank because I just need more capital injection to make this whole thing work. Where if they would step back and do what you did, take the time to learn how the numbers actually work, how they can make small decisions, change where they focus, then they're not in, like, for me, a loan is just as bad as a lease. Like, I'm not getting
Absolutely.
out of that thing. And the worst part about the loan is I can't sublease a loan off to
Mhm.
somebody else to take that
Right.
responsibility for me. So you're right. One bad decision equals a kaleidoscope of bad momentum if you're not careful about what to fix.
So to Dennis's story, we had a client start that just mirrors everything that we're talking about. They were losing money, so they didn't price themselves properly, signed really bad leases, paid way too much. So really, to be honest, once they started, we looked at the numbers and realized like they just can't even dig their way out. But what they had done before we started, to Dennis's loan point, they went and borrowed conventional money, or at a regular loan rate of whatever, 7-8%, whatever it was, and then lost money. So then that loan got used up on the losses. Then they went and got a like an aftermarket loan, like a non-conventional one, right? At like
High
it was
interest.
around 20, high interest one at like 25 or 7%, but kept losing money. And then added like the huge interest on that loan got added to their expenses, which meant they lost more money faster. And then, need more money. They went and got a second high interest loan at over 30%, and then got a third one. And it basically, that's when they started working with us. And I just looked at them like we did the math, and based on the lease and the high interest payments and the size of the space and the service they sold, mathematically, they couldn't dig themselves out. So it was either go bankrupt, or they had to go get an investor to buy out the loans to get rid of the high interest, to give themselves a chance to try and make money, sublease some space. And it worked, except they had to give away 100% of their company and they became employees. Like, so to Dennis's point, make one bad decision or sign a bad lease or high interest. And Yanick, to your point, one or two bad decisions and you can kill yourself. And if you don't even know you're making a bad decision because you don't know the numbers inside and out 3-dimensionally, you're effed. Like, it's done. It's game over.
That's the problem. Is you
Crazy.
don't know you're making a wrong decisions.
It's Russian roulette, right? It's like,
and you don't have, like, in business, you don't have a whole lot. Let's say if you have like a 5 tickets of bad decisions, you don't have many more of those. You know what I mean? You can get by with 1 or 2, and depending how significant
severity.
the bad decision is, but you don't have a whole lot of those free passes. So you need to know your number first before you make those decisions, because if you sign that lease and then you do the number after and realize after the fact, I'm sure it's not a good feeling. But if you actually did the number, and then now you're looking for space, and you say, like, I go back to my point earlier with a 2,000 versus a 6,000. When you go lease 2,000, you go there confident because you've done your due diligence, you've done your number, so you know what you're looking at. So I'm still making profit with these decisions. It's great. We need it. It will help us to actually grow more revenue, more profit. Fantastic. And then when it comes time to the 6,000 square foot building, it's the same thing. You're as confident because you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, you know your numbers. So the stress is significantly less, because if you go there and you kind of wing it, and then you go and then you sign that lease, but you have those bad thoughts behind and you're doubting yourself, it's not a great feeling. You don't go in there with confidence. So your ideal situations, it's to go there confidence. It's like, I have no problem. I can sign that lease, no problem, because I'm confident and I know what I'm doing. You don't want to go there on the fence there and then signing it and hoping that it will work, because this doesn't last long in business. It will catch you. It will catch you. So,
and I think that's actually the point, right? Like, people, I love you said that, because people might think, oh, well, I've been around for 5 years in business, so I'm not going to be one of those 95% that fail. But what you're saying is, you are, because you're going to make a bad decision that's going to sink you, or you're going to make a couple that sink you. Like, it's coming. And people don't realize that. Like, when we've done a lot of research on this recently, and it can happen at 5 years, it can happen at 10 years, it can happen at 15 years. Like, you're 1 or 2 bad decisions from game over, and you just don't realize it. It's such a powerful perspective and piece of advice.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, we don't have anything to go off of but our own emotions, right?
Right.
Like we talk about, well, we want work-life balance. And so then we start doing things that we think is going to give our life back because it emotionally feels good. But I don't think people understand that something as simple as work-life balance or getting a lease or whatever else all costs money. So if I want a lease, I got to have the money to spend for it. So I got to make it somewhere. Do I have that planned out? If I get a loan, I got to pay that loan back, but those loan payments aren't tax deductible. So me paying back the loan, am I going to be screwed on taxes? If I want work-life balance, do I just suddenly just start taking time off and not show up for work because somebody's got to pay that price too? So everything you want to do in your life is going to take money. And Yanick is being able to talking with you, I've been able to put the logic behind my decisions. That logic puts my emotions in check, which keeps me from derailing my entire enterprise because I'm not going off of what feels good. I'm going off of what actually looks good. And then if I'm confident in that, my emotions go up. And if I want to start getting work-life balance, well, I got to make sure that those numbers are high enough that I can buy people to do what I do because I can't get my work-life balance without paying for it.
Absolutely. I have 2 points on that is going back to what I was saying earlier, when you have the opportunity to have your cost of operation lower than the competitions.
Mm-hmm.
If you go too big and increase your cost of operations, you lost that opportunity right there, right? So you had the opportunity, you lost it, and you don't have it anymore, and you won't get it back. So you got to make sure you can make the right decisions. The other point is, since I joined the program and I with Greg there, in business, the emotions, you should not have emotion in it because usually the emotion will make you take a bad decision or not the right one. But having a guy like Greg with me in the business help because I usually don't let my emotion come involved, but I'm not an exception.
We're all human. Yeah.
Exactly, right? We all want the big things and everything. But when I got those thoughts and ideas and everything, I can get Greg to put me back. It's like, yeah, and I understand. I hear what you're saying, but let's come down here, right? We somebody with no emotions that look at the business from the outside view, and it's a big factor to not make those emotional decisions. Because if you only rely on yourself, you in your emotion and you make your decisions and you think it's a good one, and you try to sell yourself on that decision and make sense when it never did from the beginning. But having somebody, an outsider, to look at the business from the outside, it reduce and almost remove the emotional decisions that you're going to take, because you don't have emotion in the business saying, yeah, you should do that. I agree with you, even though if it doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, you go through the numbers, and emotion and not the numbers are the numbers. So what are you willing to give to make that decision? Are you willing to give some 3% of your net profit? That's what you're willing to do. And maybe is that. Maybe it's that, because maybe whatever that decision you're going to take, you lose 3% now, but you'll gain it back later on because of that decision, because of that piece of equipment that you're planning to buy. So you also understand that, I'm going to lose a bit now, but I'm going to get it back later on, and this is the plan. So that's great. But if you just go and don't know that, you might lose more than 3%. And if you at 5 and you lose 3, there's not much left.
I gotta say, so if anybody wants to understand like what to change and become successful in business, and to be honest, sign up with a program like ours, just take the last 2 minutes, rewind and hit play and rewind and hit play and rewind and hit play and listen to what Yanick just said, because the message was great. But what I love about it is you made it all about knowing your numbers. You just talked about if your operating expenses go up, does it get you a piece of equipment? Will I get you more revenue than when you get it back? Like the way you just articulated that story, like that, what you just shared, just shows now your level of 3-dimensional understanding of your numbers and your confidence on, like, fuck, man, that was awesome to listen to just now. Like I got goosebumps. That was really cool. Well, yeah, anybody listen to this, rewind that and listen to it over and over again, because that tells you what you need. That's where you need to get to as a business owner. That was really cool.
Yeah, agreed. So what's life like now? So you've been going through the program. You've been making a bunch of changes. You've looked at differences in your numbers. Your perspective on your business has changed. What's life like for you now?
Life it's not perfect. but it's more it's more clear as a direction, like I said earlier. That before I joined the program, it was, I'm a hard worker, just working and just try to get by. But you kind of have a sort of a directions, but you don't have a clear one. Now I have a better understanding, a better idea where I need to focus. So I like to say it's less stressful, but it's not necessarily less stressful at this moment. But I know it will come because those kind of things is not overnight. It will eventually, the stress level will reduce. And the reason why is because your confidence in your decisions when you're making your decisions, right? So reduce the stress drastically, knowing that decision, I know it's the right decisions. Because if you're doubting your decision, that's where the problem happens.
I also know that to partly answer Dennis's question, I also know, and I'm not going to divulge any announcements, but next month we're doing all our client awards, and you're right there in the hunt for Rookie Business of the Year, and that's all based on performance. There's no emotion attached to those awards. So the performance, like the numbers are there. And again, whether you win or not to be announced, but you're right there in the hunt. And if anybody listened to what you've just been talking about the last hour, they understand why.
Well,
Yeah.
and I was just going to say, I think a part of the stress comes from uncertainty of the future. Like if people look at anxiety,
Yeah.
anxiety is from stress of the unknown of the future, and depression's from too much focusing on mistakes of the past, right? So you get to a position in your business where I think you get used to operating at a level of uncertainty, and the momentum of the thought process is now there. It's the what if, what if, what if, what if, what if, and you're in the process now of building the building blocks that go, okay, yes, but I know I can predict this. I know I can predict this. I know I can predict this. From what you're saying, listening to what you've talked about, listening to where your headspace is at, listening to your viewpoint on the numbers, listening to your viewpoint on the future of work-life balance, all the building blocks are there. Your emotions just haven't caught up with the fact that you're actually on the path that's there. You're just used to running in a chaotic version for such a long time. It's hard to shake that anxiety and just reframe the brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
You're in anxiety because you keep doubting if that was the right decisions, because you
Right.
don't fully know if that was the right decisions. So your anxiety and your stress level is high because you're hoping, you're doubting, you're constantly in that hope and doubts. Other than when you've done your work, and Greg and I went over everything, and you're like, yeah, I think it's the right decisions. Then when I go to bed, it's easier, right? So
Yeah.
you know that you're not going to regret that decisions. It's going to, and you understand why you're making that decisions. You understand what that decisions would get you down the road as well, and is only positive because you're not making decisions to not get positive out of it. I want something in return, right? So maybe make my work easier, maybe make me more revenue. There's always things in the positive side, but if you take the wrong one, you most likely you have a lot of negative things that come out of that decisions. So we try to avoid those ones.
I'm sure a lot of people can hear what Dennis just said and what he asked you in your answer. A lot of people can probably relate to that.
well, and you're working through a lot of faith. Like
Yes.
you're able to be exposed to a different way of thinking. That exposure doesn't necessarily bring certainty. Certainty comes through action and taking steps. Then as you take action and things work, you either keep moving in that direction or you correct what didn't work to slightly alter the direction. But you, unfortunately, in our situation, and probably when you're dealing with Greg, you're taking theory. You're saying, yeah, it sounds great. You're taking that theory into a level of application. That level of applications triggers a whole new level of fear because I've never gone this route before. It logically makes sense. The emotions are fighting you. You take the action. It either worked the way you hoped it would, worked almost the way you hoped it would, or it didn't work at all. But then you're still trying to retrain the brain to go, okay, no, the path is the path. I have the machete. I have the pathway I can go, but it's still kind of blind to see what's behind the next mountain because you haven't got there yet. So you're retraining those skills, reframing the brain, re-going. And it's all, from what I'm hearing you talk, and it's different for Greg and I because we listen to where people were at before and we can see where they're at now, that when we talk with clients and talk with businesses, it doesn't take long for me to figure out where they're at in their journey based upon how they talk and what they say. And based upon what you're talking about and how you're saying it, I think a lot of people listening to this will miss it because they're not in the world of what we do. But the subtle changes you're making has got you on a path towards a mastery that most people will never experience.
Right.
Absolutely.
You just got to trust the process.
Yeah.
And it's you gotta be able to live in the uncomfort zone to a certain level.
Yep.
So you cannot be just like really, really not uncomfortable, but you always want to be on that edge of I'm not comfortable every single day, because that one is the one that keep pushing you to and become more creative, and don't waste your times on things that it doesn't give you good in your life. So
Yeah.
stay humble and then keep pushing, and that's the reality of business.
Yeah.
That you are going to be on your uncomfortable zone. If you're comfortable, that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're on the verge of uncomfortable, that's where you want to be. If you're overwhelmed, not comfortable, that's a problem
Right.
as well. So if you
Yeah.
want to move forward and push, you gotta be on that edge of on the side of not comfortable to keep pushing you and be comfortable to not be comfortable. That's
Yeah.
kind of where you want to be.
Super hard to do.
Yeah.
It is.
It's like doing an activity, like, I don't know whether it's hiking or like I went go-karting the other day, right? So if you want to win a go-kart race, you definitely can't be super comfortable and drive slow. Doesn't work.
Mhm.
You can't overdrive the car because then you're going to be spinning out and then you lose the race because you're overwhelmed. You got to be on what you just said, right?
On
And
the
it
edge.
applies to just about anything in life. But being on the edge in that go-kart race was fun and exciting. It wasn't stressful. But if I was ripping around, if I was going into every single corner without backing off the gas at all, I'd be spinning out all the time. Cars would be hitting me. There'd be accidents, and that'd be super stressful, right? So, and it's like that in anything in life, right? Like, you walk up to a cliff in a hike, you don't want to jump over the cliff, but it's kind of exciting to look over and go, wow, that's a pretty cool view, right? Versus
Mhm.
being way back going, well, I didn't get to enjoy the view. So yeah, I think what you're saying applies to everything in life. And that's
Absolutely.
that was a really good perspective. Yeah, it's good advice. Agree.
It comes down to your tolerance, I guess. Some people are barely
Yeah.
standing at the edge looking down, and other people are flatlining it across or
Yeah, right?
slacklining it
Yeah.
across.
Right.
Yeah.
They're jumping, and while they're jumping, they're calling the helicopter saying, "Hey, can you come pick me up before I hit the ground?"
But I think that's probably what you're noticing too is as you're going through and you're learning things and you're making the adjustments, you're making the changes, your level of uncomfortability is a lot higher, or sorry, your level of comfortability is a lot higher than it was before. So like that's the other competitive advantage you get is that you're now used to being uncomfortable at an area that's completely unusual for most people, but now it's normal
Absolutely.
for you.
Yeah. It's because you don't realize it on a day-to-day basis because you keep changing. So that's why you're uncomfortable, because it's always something new. You're always learning. You're always exposing yourself at different ways to do things and things that you never tried before. So that's keep you uncomfortable, but that's the right thing because you're doing the right change and everything. If you stay uncomfortable, you'll never get that progress that you try to get. And eventually, 10 years down the road, you go back and you're like, most people will never be comfortable to doing this. But
Yeah.
you learn slowly to be comfortable in your uncomfort zone. But you don't want to pass that line. It's a fine line that's like, now I'm way above my head, way uncomfortable. And now it's like, okay, I'm not getting anything positive of that situation. But if you just pass that, make you grow, you're constantly adapting, you're constantly changing, constantly trying new things. And that's where you'll grow. But going on the comfort zone, I'm sorry, you won't grow. You won't learn. You won't try different things. You most likely won't try different things because you keep the same way you've been doing it forever. So yeah, it's great. Why would I change? I'm doing this. It's always been working. Yeah, I know, but you're not improving. It's working without improvement. But the world and business competitions and everything, they're changing. So if you're not, they are. So up to you.
So boy, bravo, man. Do I love you just said that. Dennis and I talk about this, to be honest and transparent. We talk about this too often because it happens more than we would like or it should happen. But what you just said describes this situation, which is we see clients will come to us, transformation will happen. When they come to us, they're either losing money or they're making less than a fair market wage for the job they do in their company, which means they're losing a profit because they can't pay themselves fully. And we help them, we fix it. And, let's just pretend it takes 2 years. And in that 2-year window, they go from barely surviving to making, give or take, 250, 300 grand a year in their pocket. Like after everything's said and done, they're putting 250, 300 a year in their pocket. And what I'm hearing in your story describes this situation. And then sometimes what happens is they get too comfortable, but more importantly, they don't get comfortable doing what you just explained, like kind of pushing the edge a little bit. So then they quit, they back off, and they coast. And that's their decision. That's fine. But here's what happens, and this is what drives me nuts, is I know for a fact what's going to happen is they're going to have that 250, 300 a year lifestyle where they're spending that money. At that amount per year, most people probably don't save much, right? They get comfortable in a certain lifestyle, like with after-tax money. And they go through the next 10 or 20 years, and it's great. They lived a great lifestyle. Like it's awesome. Except when they go to retire, if they're making 250 a year, say, in their pocket, probably 100 of that would be a fair market wage and 150 would be a profit. Well, when they go to sell a company, if it's really well organized, they might be able to sell that company. If profits 150, they might be able to sell it for a 4 times multiples, say 600 grand, and say their assets are, 150 grand. So they get 750 for the company. And now there's no more income coming in. They've had 250 a year for 10 or 20 years. They get used to a lifestyle. That's over. They got 750. And now what? Their burn rate they're used to is really high. That's 750. They're going to burn through that super quick. And then to the point I think you made earlier, at that point in time, they're going to look backwards in time and they can't undo that decision. It's too late. Like they're already retired. They're already in their 60s or 70s, and it's too late to change the decision. Where if they would have stayed like you're suggesting, which is why I love you said that, on the edge a little bit, don't stress yourself into the ground, but on the edge a little bit, they might have been able to build it where the company's making 500 a year and then 750 a year and then $1 million a year. And now you got a business you can sell for $4, $5, $6 million. Same company, just continue the path by staying on the edge a little bit. Again, it's a decision they can't undo later. And it just, for me anyway, and I know Dennis feels this way because we talk about it all the time, it just breaks my heart because I know when the day comes, they're going to regret that they didn't do it differently.
Absolutely. Because they didn't pay the price, or you got to pay the price now and enjoy later on. The problem is the 10 years that they had there, they're like comfortable, life is great, making good money, barely working, no stress. When they sell the business, that's where the stress kick in. Because now there's no more incomes coming in, and now they have that at lump sum, and they're like, man, it's going down real quick. Yeah. Do you want to spend your last 10, 20 years stressed out, or you want to be stressed now and then stress-free later on? Pick one of the two. I know which one I want, but you have to grind now and then enjoy later on. In the same time, you still want to enjoy as your journey goes to a certain level, right? Because like I said earlier with that wheel, when that wheel stops spinning, it's
and Dennis said it earlier, a way to help enjoy that journey is as you make more money, you can invest some of that into people to help you. And you even said it, like you can take your profit from this down to this, invest that into other stuff that helps you grow. And it does become, not stress-free, but manageable, right? You're just kind of on that edge. You find your comfort zone there, not your comfort zone. You find what you're willing to do to earn that right for later down the road. Because this is
you can put money into people.
I think this is going to be a problem for a lot of people that don't see it coming.
Yeah, well, that's. I come back to my point earlier. Competition it's adapting and adjusting every single day. So you have to. If you're not, you're going to be out of the race real quick. It's just the reality of it, and I think it's even more and more. And then it will be fun to see with AI how that journey will, internet, social media kind of increase that. Now with AI, I don't know, but I have a feeling that is not going to slow down. I think it would be even increasing this. So you have to keep up. It's just the way it is. It's the same thing with any athlete, and we talk about that all the time. If you slow down your workout and the way you eat and the way you live your life, you won't last. Everyone you see that slow down, they're not playing anymore. Because the
Yeah.
younger one, hungry in business, is exactly
Yeah.
the same thing. It's new, younger one, new ways to do things, new innovations, and yeah, so you have to constantly adapt, and you won't
Yeah.
be in your comfort zone adapting like this because it's something that you don't know. It's something
Yeah.
that you never tried before, so that will catch you eventually if you slow down, and sooner than later.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it's only the timeline's getting faster. You're right.
It's a faster pace. We're living a life
Mhm.
in a way faster pace, and the business is rolling at a way faster pace, and they're growing too at a faster pace too.
Yeah.
You look at businesses. We never had business that big before
Yeah.
that we have now. We had big business, but now it's crazy.
Yeah. Agreed. So Yanick, a question I'm sure like cleaning companies, homeowners, commercial property owners or managers or whatever probably commonly ask, because I know we do in our house, what's the best way to clean windows?
It's always the
And I'm
famous
assuming it's not
questions.
like
No,
this.
there's actually a few products out there to clean glass. Obviously, you always have the Windex, the residential glass cleaner is popular, but there's commercial grade glass cleaner that we use after we install the glass. We always clean our glass. But they also have certain coatings that reduce the cleaning drastically. So basically, anything that's on the glass, it's not necessarily on the glass, it's on the coating. So it could be a fingerprint, any stain, and that it's kind of a repelling, a bit like the big picture of the Rain X on windshield.
Right.
It's the same idea of that. So that will significantly reduce the amount of cleaning. It's not like auto cleaner, but when you clean the glass, it'll drastically reduce the amount of time you're going to spend on cleaning, and it's way easier.
And can the everyday person get access to commercial cleaners? Like, is that a thing or no?
I'm sure you could find a way, but obviously we sell like a glass
Is this like
cleaner.
a black market thing?
No, not necessarily. Not
Slide
necessarily.
into our dark web website.
Come here,
to
buddy.
buy
I
our-
got some professional glass cleaner.
It's like those. We have this in Alberta, as like at the gas station. They try to clean sell glass cleaner, but it's something that we like the coating that I'm talking about. It's something that we apply for our clients, and it lasts about 5 years. It's a commercial grade product.
Okay.
That would be your best solution and options for reducing the amount of cleaning. But obviously, like the Windex and like hot water and vinegar, it's very residential grade glass cleaning. There are tons of other glass cleaners that are way better.
Okay.
So,
That does lead me to a question. I mean, I don't know if I had watched this, if I'm a listener and I watch this at the very beginning, I'd be like, holy crap. Clearly, if I'm getting anything done with glass, I better hire somebody like a company knows what the hell they're doing. So how do people get a hold of you? People, they want to find your company. They're interested in getting glass done, whether it's interior, exterior, residential, commercial, or whether maybe they want to reach out and get you to coat their windows. How do they find you?
a website would be the best, edgeglass.ca. And then obviously social media, Facebook, Instagram. We usually deal more with contractor than necessarily a personal homeowner. It's usually be a custom home builder that will build a home for a
Right.
homeowner, or a commercial contractor that will reach out. Yeah, that's pretty much how people can get a hold of us.
Great. So our producer likes to ask us a couple of questions at the end to get to know us all better. The first question, and just based on the order on my screen, I'll go to Dennis first.
Of
But
course.
the first question is, what's a thing that instantly makes your day better? Wait, I'm going to interrupt for a second. We did a podcast where our guest went to, oh, my wife. And then Dennis had to say that. And then I was peer pressured to say that. So I'm asking the first question, what's the thing that instantly makes your day better? You are not allowed to say my wife.
Oh, well, that's easy. My kids. I know that can sound trite. It depends on the day. But honestly, for the most part, it's whether I have a good day or a bad day, I think the bad days are always a little bit more fun when you get to sit down with the kids and play games or do Mario Kart or do something that just kind of gets the headspace for me outside of the work environment. And if it's a good day, I get to look at them and realize this is why I'm doing it all, for the fun adventures and stuff that we get to have. And I know a friend of mine who doesn't have kids. We were discussing children at one point, and he's like, well, what's the point of children? I said, well, I'm in my 40s. Everything for me is normal. Watching them experience things for the first time gives me a brand new perspective of life because I'm seeing it now through their eyes and their excitement of something I took for granted. That's probably the biggest thing that instantly changes my mood, makes me feel better.
Yeah, makes sense. It's good. And now we're not all peer pressured into saying my wife.
Oh, and my wife.
Yanick, how about you? And for the record, I love my wife, but it's
Don't say
if
but.
one person says it, then it's peer pressure. Everybody's got to give that answer to every question.
For me, that would be workout first thing in the morning. I need that.
Good one.
I wake up, I work out with my wife every morning, and it's kind of like the best way to get a good mood, even if I had a good or bad sleep. If I work out, connect together, my wife and I, and then it gave me energy and certain confidence. So that would probably be.
Sorry, you're talking about the gym here, right?
Does it matter?
Right. That's right.
Does it matter? It's a workout, Greg. It brings them together. I don't think you need to know what kind of workout they're doing. It's completely up to them.
I'm just getting clarity. I'm going to say my dogs. That's an easy one. It just, any one of them, doesn't matter how bad the day's going or what's going on with them. The minute they know, like, it's the work day's over, it's because they know the routine. It's time to go for a walk, or, hey, it's time to go eat. They're just like, dogs can go from, like, they're just always in a good mood. It's easy to change your mood just like that. Okay, Dennis, ready? What's your go-to comfort food when life gets tough?
Chocolate. My wife's a salty person. I'm more of a sweet person. I don't keep a lot of chocolate in my house for that particular reason.
So what chocolate?
Normally it's that fruit and nut bar.
Oh, the Cadbury one?
Yeah, the dairy milk or whatever it happens.
Those are good.
Nut
Yeah,
bar.
those are good. They don't have those in the States. They don't have, I don't even think they had any Cadbury chocolate in there.
Well, I mean, and it has to have at least one advantage.
Nice.
But yeah, that's my go-to. If I'm feeling whatever, I usually have 3 or 4 in my house, which I try to cut back on because I end up wearing them for a long period of time.
Like around the mouth?
No, like in the belly and in the glutes. Yeah. You can tell after a while I've been into the Cadbury. So then I got to do my morning workouts.
Yanick, how about you?
I think I would say like beef jerky.
Mm.
That would be like,
good one.
Yeah, be like, I don't eat that much, but like,
Your answer makes me feel fatter. I should have said something about the protein snack.
Do you have a specific beef jerky you go to? Like, do you buy one out of the store, or do you get like somebody's backyard homemade beef jerky?
Well, it's a kind
you
of
make
a
your own?
local shop. No, I've tried that before and I gave up on that one.
Tough.
I go to it's like a local shop here in Airdrie. It's called My Local Ranch. It's basically like a farmer that's just west of here that does it. That's where we get our meat, and that's usually what I get my beef jerky there.
That's good.
Yeah,
Homegrown.
I love beef jerky. To me is one of those things where like it's amazing or shitty.
Mm-hmm. That's
right.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, there's nothing in between. You know, you're on a road trip and you're at the gas station and it's like beef jerky be great, but I'm like, I know it's all gonna suck, so I'm not gonna do it. I might as well eat like a salt cube.
Dude, it tastes a lot better with vodka.
Great.
I don't know that for sure. I'm just making stuff up.
What the hell's the answer to that question for me? Probably I'd piggyback Dennis's answer and say probably chocolate would be one. But then once in a while I got a soft spot for like the Annie's organic macaroni and cheese. That stuff's pretty good once in a while. But honestly, my favorite probably for that is the smoker. Anything I can do on the smoker. Love that. For anybody who doesn't have a smoker, get a smoker. Awesome.
I agree.
I disagree.
Yeah. Yanick, thank you very much.
Having me, it was a pleasure.
It was awesome to have you. Some great perspective. I think the listeners are going to get a lot of different insights and perspective about that. I think it's really great. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform and leave a comment or review if you're feeling generous. To learn more about us and what we do, check out our website. Until next time, take care.